Welcome to the channel. Tonight, we uncover the truth behind one of history's most chilling mysteries. In the frozen heart of the Soviet Union, January 1959 brought an unusual warmth to the air. But beneath this deceptive calm, 9 young hikers prepared for a journey that would make them legend. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old radio engineering student, this group of ambitious adventurers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute dreamed of conquering one of the most challenging routes in the northern Urals, a trek so demanding that only the most experienced hikers dared attempt it. Igor Dyatlov gathered his closest companions for this perilous journey. Among them were Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivnishenko, both just 21 years old. Lyudmila Dubinina, the only other woman besides Zinaida Kolmogorova, brought spirit and determination to the group. There was Alexander Kolvatov, the quiet intellectual, and Rustam Slobodin, whose keen mind hid behind thoughtful eyes. Nikolai Thiboks-Brignoles carried an air of adventure, while Semyon Zolotaryov brought experience as the oldest member at 38. They were grade Roman II hikers, skilled and certified, about to attempt grade Roman III certification upon their return. On January 23, 1959, the group received their official route book. Their destination, Mount Odorton, approximately 190 miles north through some of the most unforgiving terrain in the Urals. 2 days later, they departed Sverdlovsk City, modern-day Yekaterinburg, by train, then truck, arriving at Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement before the wilderness claimed them. There was no turning back now. The frozen wilderness awaited. An adventure pulsed through their veins. January 27th saw them beginning their true ascent into the mountains, but fate intervened. Yuri Yudin, one of the original 10, suffered from rheumatism and a congenital heart defect. His joints screamed in protest against the brutal cold. With heavy heart but pragmatic mind, he turned back on January 28th. He would live another 54 years, but on that cold morning he became the only one who would survive what lay ahead. With 9 hikers remaining, the group pushed deeper into the northern Urals. The landscape transformed into a white void of pine forests and jagged peaks. January 31st found them at the edge of a highland, caching surplus food and equipment in a wooded valley for their return journey. They believed they knew what lay ahead. They were profoundly wrong. February 1st brought disaster. A fierce snowstorm descended upon the mountains, reducing visibility to nothing. The hikers lost their bearings. Their intended path would have taken them over the pass and to shelter on the opposite side. Instead, they deviated westward toward the summit of Khalat Siakl. In the local Mansi language, this meant Dead Mountain. The mountain lived up to its name that night. As darkness fell and temperatures plummeted toward minus 40 degrees Celsius, Dyatlov made a controversial decision. Rather than descend 5 kilometers to the forest below, where shelter from the howling katabatic winds might have saved them, he ordered camp to be established on the mountain's exposed slope. Perhaps he didn't want to lose their hard-won altitude. Perhaps he wanted practice in harsh conditions. Whatever his reasoning, this choice sealed their fate. Sometime in the darkness of February 1st or 2nd, 1959, terror struck the tent. What happened in those frozen hours would haunt investigators for decades. The 9 hikers, experienced, level-headed individuals, fled into the night in a blind panic. They didn't stop to dress properly. They didn't stop to gather supplies. They simply ran, cutting their way out of the tent from the inside with knives. When searchers finally discovered the tent on February 26th, it told a story of chaotic desperation. Half-torn and buried under snow, the shelter stood empty. Inside, all their possessions remained: food, clothing, warm boots. 9 sets of footprints led away from the campsite into the darkness. Some prints showed only socks, others a single shoe. Some were completely barefoot, leaving blood-soaked imprints in the snow. The search party followed the trail for 500 meters before snow buried the tracks. At the edge of the forest, beneath a towering Siberian pine, they found the first bodies. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivnishenko lay frozen beside the remnants of a small fire. They wore only their underwear. Their shoes and socks had been left behind at the camp. The branches of the pine tree were broken up to 5 meters high. One of them had desperately tried to climb for a view, for salvation, for anything. Further from the tree, 3 more corpses emerged from the snow. Igor Dyatlov himself lay there, along with Zinaida Kolmogorova and Rustam Slobodin. Their poses suggested they had attempted to return to the tent, to recover their supplies, their warmth, their survival. But hypothermia had other plans. These 5 had died from exposure, their bodies frozen solid in the brutal February cold. For over 2 months, 4 hikers remained missing. Their bodies lay hidden beneath 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters deeper into the forest. When spring finally came in May 1959, the snow revealed what winter had concealed. The full horror of Dyatlov Pass was about to unfold, and it would challenge everything investigators thought they understood. When the final 4 bodies emerged from the melting snow, investigators confronted injuries that defied explanation. Nikolai Thiboks-Brignoles had suffered major skull damage, not from a fall but from tremendous force. Semyon Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina had experienced severe chest fractures. The force required, comparable to a car crash. But here was the mystery. There were no external wounds associated with these catastrophic internal injuries. Something had crushed them without breaking the skin. Macabre discoveries continued. In the creek where the final 4 had died, running water had played cruel tricks with their remains. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue. Her eyes had been removed. Part of her lips and facial tissue were gone. A fragment of her skull had disappeared entirely. Zolotaryov was missing his eyeballs. Kolvatov had lost his eyebrows. Forensic experts concluded these injuries occurred post-mortem, likely from animals and the relentless water. But their absence added to the nightmare. One fact haunted investigators. Why had they fled in such inadequate clothing? Temperatures had plunged to 25 below 0 Celsius. A howling storm raged through the night, yet the victims were found with missing shoes, absent socks, some nearly naked. The logical mind screamed that this was impossible, that no one would voluntarily face such cold without protection. Unless, of course, something more terrifying had driven them from that tent. Among the evidence that would fuel decades of conspiracy theories, one detail stood out. Traces of radiation were found on certain items of clothing. The level and source remained disputed, but this single fact would launch 1,000 theories. Military tests, UFO contamination, secret weapons. The Soviet government remained silent, classifying the case files and closing the investigation with the vague conclusion of a compelling natural force. In the decades that followed, over 75 theories attempted to explain what killed the Dyatlov group. The indigenous Mansi people were initially suspected, but cleared when evidence showed no struggle. Military rocket tests, secret weapon trials, encounters with UFO or ball lightning, attacks by an abominable snowman, infrasound-induced panic, conflict with fugitive criminals, botched spy meetings. Each theory gained traction only to crumble under scrutiny. The truth remained as frozen as the victims themselves. Russia kept the case classified until the 1970s, which only intensified global fascination. The Dyatlov Foundation was formed by relatives demanding answers. Personal accounts emerged, witnesses describing the victim's skin as having a deep brown tan despite months beneath the snow. Such tan typically appears in bodies exposed to something. But what? The Soviet government's refusal to release documents added fuel to conspiracy fires. In February 2019, Russia's Prosecutor General Office made a stunning announcement. The Dyatlov Pass case would be reopened. Relatives, the media, and the public had never stopped demanding the truth. Prosecutor Alexander Kurenoy stated that the investigation would consider only natural phenomena. No criminal activity would be pursued. The possibilities: an avalanche, a snow slab, or a hurricane. 3 months later, investigators descended on Khalat Siakal with rescue workers, forensic experts, and 400 pages of original case documents. The 2019 investigation concluded in 2020 with an official finding. A slab avalanche had most likely forced the survivors to flee their camp in low-visibility conditions without adequate clothing. Deputy Prosecutor Andrei Karyakov described it as a heroic struggle. There was no panic, but they had no chance to save themselves under the circumstances. Yet questions remained. If it was simply an avalanche, why had the Soviet government hidden the case for decades? Why the mysterious injuries? Why the radiation? In 2021, a scientific study published by Swiss researchers from EPFL and ETH Zurich offered new hope for understanding. Led by Johan Gaume, the study recreated conditions at Dyatlov Pass using simulations based on historical weather data. Their conclusion: a slab avalanche could indeed explain the severe but non-lethal thorax and skull injuries. The hikers, lying flat on their backs while sleeping, could have been crushed by falling snow blocks, injured but not killed immediately. The Swiss scientists identified a crucial detail. The hikers had cut into the snow-covered slope to establish their camp. This action, combined with strong katabatic winds depositing additional snow, created unstable conditions. The avalanche didn't occur immediately. It came hours later, after the hikers had fallen asleep. This explained why they had time to cut their way out of the tent before the full weight of snow buried them. According to the avalanche theory, the sequence of events became tragically clear. The avalanche struck, injuring 3 hikers severely but not killing them. Panicked and disoriented in the darkness, some fled the tent without proper clothing. They built a fire beneath the pine tree, but the injuries, exposure, and psychological terror claimed them one by one. Those who survived the initial event tried to return to camp, but succumbed to hypothermia. Despite the scientific advances, questions linger. The radiation on clothing remains unaccounted for. The missing eyes and tongue of Lyudmila Dubinina, if truly post-mortem, require animal intervention, but animals had been sparse in the frozen landscape. The strange internal injuries without external wounds still puzzle forensic experts. The Soviet secrecy that classified the case for decades seems excessive for a simple hiking accident. Perhaps the most haunting figure in this tragedy is Yuri Yudin, the man who turned back. He lived another 54 years, dying in 2013 at age 76. He attended 5 of the funerals. He watched his friends disappear into history, forever wondering, if he had stayed, would he have died alongside them? Or would his presence have somehow changed fate's dark calculus? He would never know. None of us would. Today, a prominent rock outcrop serves as a memorial to the 9 hikers. Located about 500 meters east of the actual campsite, it bears inscriptions and offerings from those who remember. A mountain pass was officially named Dyatlov Pass in their memory, though the incident occurred on Khalat Syakhl itself. Visitors leave coins, photographs, and flowers, tokens of remembrance for young lives extinguished too soon. Consider the mathematics of tragedy. 9 hikers, 1 survivor who shouldn't have survived, 573 days until all bodies were recovered, minus 40 degrees Celsius at its coldest, over 75 theories proposed, 60 years of silence from official Russia, one 2021 study that finally offered scientific plausibility, and still, the complete truth eludes us. Beyond the mystery, beyond the theories, 9 young people lost their lives. Igor Dyatlov was 23 years old. Lyudmila Dubinina was just 20. They had futures, careers, families they would never build. They were Soviet citizens in a nation that celebrated its pioneers, but these pioneers died forgotten, their bodies scattered across a frozen mountainside. Their parents buried empty coffins. Their memories became myth. Even now, Dyatlov Pass remains controversial. Some accept the avalanche theory as the final answer. Others refuse to believe that simple weather could produce such horrific injuries, such desperate behavior, such government secrecy. New investigators, new scientists, new amateur sleuths continue to probe. The mystery of what actually happened on that frozen slope may never be fully solved. February 1st or 2nd, 1959, 67 years ago, the mountains of the northern Urals claimed 9 souls in circumstances no one fully understands. We have scientific simulations, official investigations, eyewitness accounts, and classified documents. But we cannot call it solved, because somewhere in that frozen darkness, something happened that made experienced hikers flee into death rather than face what pursued them. And that mystery, that terrible, fascinating, unknowable mystery, remains as cold and silent as the snow on Khalat Syakhl. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share.